What you're about to hear is Earth's Forbidden Secrets, Part 4. Angus and I sat back down to record the next chapter. This one was recorded a few weeks ago. These ones are bankers in between the excellent interviews that we have coming up. And we were talking about the rain. And as I sit here and record this, the rain is returning. The environment's an interesting one. I don't really want to get into it right now because it doesn't pertain to this episode. However, interesting things seem to be happening. We're really enjoying doing this book, Angus and I. It's an escape for us both, and we really hope you guys are enjoying it as much as we're enjoying doing it. For the video portion of this podcast, this is actually the new setup, and you guys can see the refinery properly. So look that up on YouTube. I am going to expand those platforms in the very near future. I don't have much more apart from to just show some gratitude. Gratitude to you, the listener. Gratitude to the awesome guests that we've had on recently and the ones that are coming up. This is a very cool thing that I get to do, and I'm stoked that you guys enjoy listening to it. I think rowdy's the order of the day. Not too sure which ones, however, let's see how we go. The chaos continues. Please look after yourselves. Please be kind, be cool, stay safe, be disciplined, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Well, I
Mate,
Hey, how you going?
good man. How are you?
I'm bloody wonderful. Yourself?
Oh, mate, not too bad. It's chaos is continuing to rain down, literally in our case.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely little morning to wake up to a flooded backyard
Yeah, that's
again.
right. Again, that's right.
Storms kicking off at about 3 a.m.
Yeah, that was great.
That was awesome Australian southeast Queensland weather.
Yeah, subtropical.
Not like
weather.
last week we had enough flooding.
Yeah.
Brisbane River's running at 15 meters or something like that.
Yeah.
Ground is saturated.
Yeah.
It only takes 20 mil to flood everything all over again.
Yeah. But mate, for those that are looking on the video, we have another upgrade, 1080p, man.
Did you notice we've gone from 720 to 1080,
and we've switched it again, so you can take in the refinery, and awesome, man. I'm excited.
Me too. So what are we doing tonight again?
What
are we doing?
Forbidden Secrets 4, mate.
Earth's Forbidden Secrets.
But we're going to start with some articles like we have been doing recently. And where's my magic little book here, mate? I better get that because that's got all the information in it. So you write it down.
Do we not dual screen now?
No, we can. I was just checking to see whether it was there.
Oh, okay, cool. I was just making sure.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one. So again, picked some articles off the page, and the most boys that liked them the most. That's who we went with. That's the articles we went with. With one we just wanted to touch on as well. Oh, no, these two are the popular ones. I'm looking at forward notes. Shh, secret squirrel stuff.
Just can't talk about that. One step at a time.
One step at a time.
One step at a time.
So thanks to Jock Spencer Ricio, who's just had a baby boy, mate. So congratulations.
Congratulations, Ricio.
All right. That's awesome, man. John and Shane gave us an article. Astrophysicists propose Earth may be alive and have a mind of its own. So we had to look at that one.
Let's have a geese.
We had to, man.
We love to gander down this garden path,
but we're going to make sure we share screen this time.
Consciousness is it's a deep subject.
Mm-hmm. And look, I believe the Earth is alive, man. So it'd be interesting if we're using science to. Well,
it is in a certain. It's like which part.
You'll like it. I've read this. I've read this. You'll like it.
Let's do it.
All right, jump into it. Astrophysicists propose Earth may be alive and have a mind of its own by Paul Seaburn. I'm pretty sure Paul's been on the JRE. That's not the first time I've heard his name. There are those who believe that the Earth is hollow and inside are subterranean beings surviving somehow despite many scientific proofs that this is impossible. Now comes a group of scientists who propose that Earth itself is alive, a Terranian being with a mind of its own. I like that. Terranian? It is Terranian.
Terranian.
Yeah. Terranian?
Dude, let's run with Terranian.
I like Terranian stands better.
Let's do
You are right, it is Terranian, but yeah. Anyway.
No.
If this is true, cough button.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work, no. If this is true,
it's a lo-fi version. Sorry, man.
In the audio I can take it out. If this is true, do we really want to know what it thinks of the beings taking such poor care of it while tramping over it with their smelly feet? That's a fair question. If the collective activity of life, known as the biosphere, can change the world, could the collective activity of cognition and action based on this cognition also change a planet? Once the biosphere evolved, Earth took on a life of its own. If a planet with life has a life of its own, can it also have a mind of its own? I mean, yes, I think so. I mean, you only got to think about the plants that go bitter. They talk to each other. You know what I mean? Like there's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So could the collective consciousness of the biome possibly be considered the mind of the Earth?
Yeah. At what point do we say, is it intelligent? I mean, I've seen my trees out the back here kill other trees to save other trees.
That's giving those trees a lot of power.
Exactly.
You
know what I mean? They're self-selecting out there.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
No, fair enough.
All right. Yes, this theory presented in the International Journal of Astrobiology by astrophysicists from the University of Rochester sounds like the plots of a number of science fiction novels and movies, but lead author Adam Frank, professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Rochester, and his colleagues present the kind of evidence and logic that pseudoscientists only dream about. Well, this is us, mate.
We are the pseudoscientists.
That's what we'd be considered.
Of course we are.
Yeah. To illustrate how plant species can operate collectively to display planetary intelligence, they point to forests where tree roots connect via underground networks to fungi to move nutrients through the forest to help areas under stress. If a forest can collectively self-maintain, can a planet? You would think so. We don't yet have the ability to communally respond in the best interest of the planet. There is intelligence on Earth, but there isn't planetary intelligence. Like a good teacher, Frank sees potential, but we have a long way to go. Not surprisingly, he uses climate change to illustrate the immature technosphere stage, Earth, and every living and non-living thing on it compromise. Oh, okay, sorry, I read that wrong. Not surprisingly, he uses climate change to illustrate the immature technosphere stage. I think it should be of Earth and every living thing and non-living thing on it compromise. That doesn't make sense. Anyway.
It's comprise,
not
compromise.
Oh, it is comprise,
but
jeez,
still
I'm off to a good start tonight.
But still, it doesn't really fit. You are, mate. Flying start is making me feel great.
Yeah.
You set the bar low.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, I can.
That's right. Then we can only go up from here. There's a lot of big words in this one, though.
No, you're right. There is.
The technosphere, our human-created and managed interlinked systems of communication, transportation, technology, electricity, and computers.
Yeah.
Is not
chew that
down. Is not integrated into Earth systems. The atmosphere, the oceans, and the underground plates, etc. Why? Yeah. The current technosphere is working against the Earth systems, which will ultimately destroy these systems, which destroy all species on Earth. That's not exactly a sign of intelligence of any kind. Fortunately, the Earth has shown promise. The biosphere figured out how to host life by itself billions of years ago by creating systems for moving around nitrogen and transporting carbon. Now we have to figure out how to have the same kind of self-maintaining characteristics within the technosphere. Is the Earth alive? By Frank's definition, yes. Does it have a mind of its own? No. But that's not Earth's fault. Like any good collective, it needs help from us to begin figuring out how to achieve maturity. Humans develop more biosphere aiding rather than biosphere destroying systems would help. If that happened, would we know what it should look like? Good question. A better question might be, would we know an intelligent exoplanet if we saw one? To get a little dystopian, what if there are no intelligent exoplanets? There are those who believe that the process of achieving the technology to leave a planet will also destroy it, most likely before any more than a few escape. Frank predicts that only other life forms we can expect to encounter are those who survive by achieving planetary intelligence. If they did that, why would they want to leave? Would their planet let them? So that's just that was interesting, man.
Yeah, look.
There's a lot of questions there. I know. What have you got?
That's a very, very climate change biased.
I got halfway because I skimmed at dot pointing, right?
Yeah.
The other night, and I didn't pick up the climate change because I didn't read it.
Putting a lot of emphasis on humans' impact on the planet. Mm-hmm. And look, fact of the matter is, there was a large period of time when the planet didn't have life on it.
That's true.
There's been a large period of time when it supported like nearly a monoculture.
Yeah.
In terms of very few species on the Earth, and it's drawing a long bow.
Yes.
To look at it from an obvious humans are parasite perspective sort of thing, and it's putting a lot of words in the Earth's mouth.
Yes.
Look, I don't think the Earth would give a fuck if we're here or not. Like, it's still going to be there in whatever way, shape, or form it exists. Yeah. And it's done it once, it'll do it again.
That's right.
Like, even if we were to extinct the planet, something will survive.
That's exactly. And the next life form.
Continue.
Yeah, the next life
and
form
like
will
to
develop
say
itself,
to say that the Earth developed systems to support life, or did life adapt to needing the systems that were already put in place?
I would say life
which
adapted.
Came first.
I would say
chicken
life
or the
adapted.
egg, you know. So look, yeah, I smelt the bias from a fucking mile away, and it stinks.
Yeah, it was a climate. I didn't realize how climate change it was.
Look. Hey, we read the article. We fucking have an opinion.
That's right.
You know.
Look, I do think, but so back away from the climate change stuff.
Yeah.
The basic idea is the planet intelligence fascinating?
Well, that's
right. The mycelium, you know what I mean? The
100%.
mushrooms, man, the tree roots.
And it was sort of what we were saying before about collective consciousness.
Yes.
Your
question is, what is consciousness? Which is the eternal question. That's the hard question. 100%. We still don't know what consciousness is.
100%. That's right.
Yeah.
But you know, with all these minds creating a vibration and humming and putting out energy in the biosphere.
Yes.
I have no doubt that there is some field of energy, if we had the correct technology, that you could observe.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
From all of the minds thinking all the time, from the cockroaches to the mycelium to the plants to, you know, all of everything.
Yeah.
Everything just creating
here's an interesting
energy
consciousness
from being alive.
So there was some kookaburras in the yard today, 3 or 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Kath said she heard this dunk against the window. And it was this young kookaburra had flew into the window, and there's 3 other kookaburras sitting in the tree pissing themselves laughing.
Yep.
So what is consciousness? Because those birds for sure said, yeah, man, you can fly through the window. Go for it, dude. We want to see you try. And then dunk.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. A conversation took place up in the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man, you can go.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I dare you.
Yeah.
Just jump down there, go down, you grab the thing off the bench.
Yeah.
You can see it. It's there. Go and grab it.
Yeah.
And they're like, remember the first time you hit a window? Fuck. That sucked. Yeah. This cunt won't do it again.
That's right. So it's interesting, man, because you're questioning what is consciousness, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that was active animal conscious. Is the plant conscious? I think it's a fascinating idea, man. The climate change stuff. And I don't want to get into climate change now because we've got a better thing to talk about, because your article, completely switching tack. So
now, while you swap over here, run me down, because you got the names there. Who are the people that put us onto this one?
So this is an old. Well, you brought this up. You've brought this up a couple of times over the years, talking about.
Yes, but
aliens.
I've always been dusty on facts.
Yes,
but it's the Australian UFO sighting at the school.
Yeah, and this one's quite detailed. This
that I brought up. So this is a very detailed article. That's what grabbed us. So we thought it was time to share something that we'd shared before, but share like the information we'd found, like a detailed account about it. So then we can all just like not put it to bed, so to say, but we'll all be on the same page.
Yeah, exactly what happened. Yeah. So it was Jock, John, Tony, Shane, and Ben. Good on you, boys. Fellow coders, thank you very much.
Thank you, legends.
Awesome, right? Thank you very much for the engagement, and thank you very much for your support. And just, so who's different out of there? Spencer, Ricio had the baby, and Shane and Spencer. That's it. So thanks, boys.
Well, dial me up.
Oh, here we go. I'm interested, man, because I again scanned this but didn't read everything. Okay. So where are
Is that
we?
it?
That's it.
All right. So this is from February 15th, 2022. 22. And who's the lovely, where do we get this one from?
Alienstar.net.
Alienstar.net.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, alienstar.net. All right, let's kick on in. Hundreds of students and teachers witnessed strange UFO above school in Australia. Australia saw its greatest collective UFO sighting in history in 1966. Over 300 kids, teachers, and others observed as a silver disc-shaped object sailed above the school, stopped behind it, then lifted up and flew away for more than 20 minutes. Witnesses to the event had no explanation what they witnessed 50 years later.
I didn't realize there was a crop circle.
So
there.
There's the West Hall High School UFO on April 6, 1966, and there's a photo of a crop circle there.
Yeah.
class of pupils and a teacher from Westall High School, now Westall Secondary College, had just concluded an outdoor physical education lesson on April 6, 1966 at 11 a.m. in Clayton South, Melbourne,
Melbourne, Victoria.
Yeah, Melbourne, Victoria. Wow,
no one, Australian suburbs. See, they don't
no
know how
one
to
proofreads their stuff anymore.
In Clayton South, Melbourne, Victoria, which is a suburb in Australia, but whatever.
Come on, guys. Let's proofread our stuff. It's not like sending a text.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a beautiful fall day. Bright and breezy. A student observed a UFO in the sky as the students moved toward the building. It was grey and saucer-shaped with a purple tinge. It resembled a school bus in size. Andrew Greenwood, a science instructor, apparently noticed the item at the same moment. It was roughly 400 yards away, disc-shaped, and had no discernible markings, he said. Moving in a southeasterly direction, the object hovered above a pair of power lines and passed the southwest corner of the school's property. Then it sank below a grove of pine trees and vanished into a clearing known as the Grange. More kids stepped outdoors to observe the UFO as word of it spread. The item resurfaced in front of the school a few minutes after going into the clearing, where it stayed visible for around 20 minutes. Around 200 children, instructors, teachers stood outside watching the craft at this time. Soon after, more members of the public joined the gathering, bringing the total number of witnesses to almost 350.
The way it's worded is odd. It's interesting.
It is. But hey, we're not here to pick the grammar to pieces.
No, that's right.
We're here for the info.
Should get that pink rug too, mate.
No. That's a sexy pink rug, man. Click on that for a moment.
No.
According to witnesses on the scene, the item was silently lingering in the sky when an airplane came and began circling it. 4 other planes arrived shortly after and encircled the target. Each plane took turns approaching the object with caution. The thing would dart away as they got closer. The chase had been going on for over half an hour when the object suddenly ascended and flew northwest. It vanished in a matter of seconds, according to witnesses.
Yeah, just messing around with the old fighter jets from the 60s.
We probably had F4s, maybe at that
66
stage.
would be, would have Sabres, F-86 Sabres.
Like a MiG-17 style,
with
like
a
single
open
intake.
nose.
Yes, open nose, yeah.
Yeah, either Sabres or, the start of F4s. Yeah.
Yep. Students dashed to the fence near the clearing when the item vanished, where the object had disappeared from view. They noticed a definite circular depression of swirling, discolored grass in the clearing. Military men arrive on site at about 3 p.m. So that's a
modern photo.
I was going to say that, like, because the grass looked quite long and thick, like a paddock.
That's obviously a modern photo.
All right, scroll down. Military officials and emergency services arrived at the school hours after the sighting, but before school let out during the day, they interrogated the children and teachers in an attempt to make sense of what they had witnessed. UFO investigators begin a formal inquiry on April 8th, 1966.
Began
a
formal inquiry?
Yes. The Victorian Flying Saucer Research Society visited the school on April 8 and chatted with the children. In the area behind the school, investigators discovered a ground mark. The ground mark was described as a huge spherical piece of yellow flattened grass with a swirly design. According to reports, the depression's borders were discolored and clearly defined. Phenomena Research Australia comes on April the 9th, 1966 to investigate. PRA. We may need to do some investigation about it.
Is there a Phenomena Research Australia now, or we need to figure that one out? Anyway,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Brian Boyle was dispatched by the Phenomena Research Australia group 3 days later to investigate. He was joined by 4 Army investigators. Boyle conducted many days of interviews with witnesses and collected soil samples from the ground mark. The soil sample, on the other hand, was misplaced before it could be examined.
Of course it was.
additional soil samples were not possible to get days
Why?
after the incident.
Because what?
The farmer who owned the land allegedly set fire to the ground mark area. Look, I wouldn't doubt that though, because we were quite a Christian country, back in the 60s. So I could, burn the demons.
Yeah.
I have exorcised the demons.
I don't like it. I'm going to set fire to it.
Yeah, fuck it. It won't. Pretty much, you burn something that don't exist anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. The sighting is reported in the Dandenong Journal on April 14th, 1966. Just give me that headline. Flying saucer mystery. School silent. What was it?
School silence. Interesting, right? So what happened is the military turned up in an interview and said, "Hey, you can't say anything about this.
Shut your mouth."
Yeah.
Can't say anything about this because that's
despite the magnitude of the tragedy.
That's our tech.
Yeah.
We can't let out. Despite the magnitude of the tragedy, it took more than a week for full stories to surface in local media. The Dandenong Journal was the first to report on the occurrence. The article was featured on the front page of the newspaper. The following night, local television station 9 News broadcasted a full investigation report regarding the incident. The broadcast's archive footage has now been lost.
Of course it has.
Wow. It's always the story. Give me some more. Keep going. The occurrence was once again published on the main page of the local newspaper on April 21, 1966. Officials presented an explanation this time, one that sounded strangely similar to one given a decade earlier for a sighting at Roswell, New Mexico. A weather balloon was reported to be the item. 5 planes spotted following the UFO, on the other hand, remained a mystery. There were no planes in the vicinity and no local pilots reported taking part in the chase. Who were the 5 pilots? There you go. That's the headline at that time. The Westall sighting is investigated by Dr. James E. McDonald. Dr. James E. McDonald, an American physicist, became involved in the research and compiled an interesting collection of interview tapes and witness notes. Andrew Greenwood, a science teacher, was interviewed by him. A frightened youngster raced into Greenwood's classroom and informed him there was a flying saucer outside, and it was the first time he heard about the UFO. He assumed the youngster had gone insane or something, so he didn't pay attention. But when the child maintained that this object was in the sky, he went out to investigate. When he stepped outside, he spotted a gathering of students staring towards the northeast corner of the school grounds. As he got closer, he claimed he saw a UFO hovering near the power line. It was characterized by Mr. Greenwood as a circular silver object the size of a vehicle with a metal rod pointing out in the air. Funny that. We used to have antenna. They don't seem to have antenna anymore.
No. Yeah, they did used to have antennas, yeah.
Greenwood
so
also...
like airplanes used to have antennas.
Yeah. But then they got faster, so you couldn't have an antenna whipping around.
They've got them, but they're in the plane now.
Yeah. They're integrated in. Yeah, whereas they used to have like a radio antenna hanging out the roof of your car on that old spring bit.
Yeah.
You know, with a coat hanger in the shape of...
That's right.
Bent into this shape of Australia. Greenwood also recalled witnessing the 5 jets. There you go. That's the first time they called them jets, so they would be sabres.
Yeah.
Pursue the UFO. According to McDonald, he described it as the most incredible flying he had ever seen. And there we go again. What happened to the 5 pilots? Oh, I can sort of... You want to try and read that?
I can try. I can read if you want.
Yeah, sure. Let's go. You go. You're going to struggle on the next page.
Yeah, I'm going to. Let's have a look. Members of the society have cooperated in the investigations and are now studying much of the information obtained. Although the interviews have helped to confirm the sighting of an unidentified object and to gain corroborative descriptions of it, there are still many unanswered questions. Apart from the obvious puzzle of the origin of the unidentified object. The greatest mystery remaining is that of 5 aircraft which were sighted flying around it. There is no doubt that the object was circled by light aircraft, but all
Small aircraft.
small aircraft. Sabres were
They're pretty small.
Yeah, but all attempts to obtain details of aircraft in the area or to trace the pilots have failed. The questions that need answers are: where did the aircraft take off and land? Why, if they were obviously chasing a strange object in the sky, the pilots didn't make an official report? Why, following publicity over the incident, hasn't any of the pilots come to light with information? These are questions that may never be answered. So that's from 1966, man. Or some within a year.
That'd be interesting to know if there's ever, any pilots come forward. How the planes were trying all they could to reach the object. He added, adding that he'll never know how they all avoided colliding. When they approached too close to the thing, it would speed slowly, then quickly, then move away from them and halt. They'd then chase it down again, and the same thing would happen. Greenwood verified that the school's headmaster, Frank Samblebe, stepped outside.
Whatever.
Samblebe. Frank Samblebe stepped out after around 30 minutes and wanted everyone back into class. After that, the headmaster held a meeting, told everyone to stop talking about the encounter. Greenwood had a clear memory of the headmaster's requests. He gave the students a lecture and warned them that if they talked about it, they would be severely penalized. And he warned the staff that if they discussed it at all, they would lose their jobs.
Isn't that, you hear that every time, man? Every time.
Sounds like Sam Bleeby might have had a phone call.
Yeah. General knocked on his door first.
McDonald claims that sharply dressed individuals wearing black suits,
of course they did,
arrived at the school shortly after the sighting. According to many witnesses, the guys were reportedly telling instructors and children at the school to keep their tongues quiet about the incident. The guys in black, according to McDonald, intimidated witnesses. One kid gave him a comprehensive account of the sighting, but then refused to speak to him after it half an hour later. He didn't blame the student's unwillingness to speak with him on the headmaster's orders. He was confident the youngster had skipped the school assembly where the principal had instructed students not to discuss the incident. He received the impression that the pupil had been threatened. Threats to academics and students also influenced media coverage. In a nutshell, it halted all coverage of the story. Because the media kept running against an official wall of silence, it ceased to be a story and became merely a memory for those concerned.
Of course it did.
Witnesses came forward years after the incident. Witnesses began to tell about what they had seen decades after the occurrence. Clark Joy. When the UFO circled Westall High School, Joy Clark was just 12 years old. She vividly recalls the events of the day. I was in class when the tale was relayed to us by classmates. I noticed the flying saucers as we hurried down to the oval. They weren't of this planet, in my opinion. They had to be from another country, since I'd never seen anything like it. Military officers and guys in black appeared, according to Joy, and commanded that the students be silent. The soldiers had come and the cops had arrived as well. While guys in black interrogated some of the other youngsters, we were informed we were emotional and it didn't happen.
Yeah, it just didn't happen. You're seeing things.
Of course. And then Stephen Cairns came along. The UAP was also seen by...
It's modern article. It's not a UFO.
Yeah. Was also seen by Stephen Cairns and his mother. Unlike the other students, Cairns was able to observe the event from a distinct perspective. After a dental visit, Stephen was heading back to school when he saw something peculiar in the sky. I noticed a silvery disc-like object in the distance. However, it was so far away at first that I had no idea what it was. The silvery disc-like object accelerated to the point where it was exactly over us. It lingered for a few seconds before flying away as fast as it had arrived. Terry Peck is a writer. Terry Peck was out playing cricket when she noticed a flying saucer in the sky. I was only around 7 yards away from it, says the narrator. 7 yards.
7 yards.
So 7 meters away.
Yeah.
Says the narrator. It was round and larger than a vehicle underneath it. I believe I saw some lights. 2 other females had arrived before me. They were pale, extremely white, ghostly white, and one was terribly disturbed. They just stated that they had passed out or fainted. An ambulance was used to transport one of the victims to the hospital. Terry also believes the situation was obfuscated.
Obfuscated. There's the word of the day.
It's a mouthful. We were all summoned to an assembly. They also urged us far out. It's hard enough as it is.
I know. They also urged everyone to be quiet.
I'd love for the military to come and say, yes, it happened. It landed, and there was a cover-up. Jacqueline Argent is a model and actress. Jacqueline. One of the first pupils to observe the landing site was Jacqueline Argent. She peered over a fence after the saucer-shaped object flew away and noticed the depressed circle marks in the grass. At first, I assumed it was an experimental aircraft, but nothing like it has surfaced in all these years. Jacqueline confirms that she was never interviewed after the incident and claims...
She was interviewed after the incident.
Sorry, that she was interviewed after the incident and claims that the individuals who interrogated her to make her look bad because of her testimony. They wore high-quality clothes and spoke clearly. I guess you saw small green guys, they added. Was the item nothing more than a balloon? In 2014, researcher Keith Basterfield claimed to have discovered information in the National Archives indicating the item was simply a balloon, a top secret balloon that was doing radiation testing, to be precise. During the 1960s, he claims similar balloons were flown in the region. He concedes, though, that he cannot be positive. What's notable at the absence of a document detailing the four April 1966 launches, one of which was slated for April 5th, 1966, the day before Westall. Witnesses now refute Basterfield's hypothesis, pointing out that the object they saw was close enough to them to view it clearly as a solid disc. They further report that it raced away at a frighteningly fast velocity. In Melbourne, there was a momentous occurrence. The sighting at Westall High School is still fresh in people's minds today. The children, who are in their late 50s at the time of writing, are still hoping for an answer. Meanwhile, the landing site has been transformed into a memorial park to commemorate the impact of Australia's greatest mass UFO sightings on locals.
And that's it.
There you go. No, well, that was a good article. Grammar aside.
Yeah, grammar aside, the detail was pretty good.
Gave us some good details. Yeah. And look, I do remember them being quite close to it. So that's, the whole 7 yards thing makes sense.
Well, yeah, mate. Look, if we could go there. Well, I don't know. Can we go there?
Possibly.
Possibly. However, yeah, we could actually go to the park and see where it is. They were interesting articles, man.
Very interesting articles, and we thank again our listeners for their engagement to bring us those articles. So, but now we have the most important, the piece de résistance.
Yes,
the forbidden secrets of the earth. And last time we finished up before a fossilized human shoe print.
Yeah, no, we finished up with ancient X-ray machine.
We finished up before. I said,
yeah, before. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, continue. Yes, so we finished on the X-ray. We're going to be moving on to the fossilized human shoe print. Take it away, El Maestro.
Righto, let's have a look at this. A fossilized human shoe print. A most amazing artifact was discovered in Antelope Spring. Good start. Off to a flyer. Antelope Springs, Utah, by William J. Meister in June of '68. Meister split open a 2-inch thick slab of rock with his hammer, and the rock fell open like a book, revealing a shoe print of a human on one side, with trilobites right in the print itself. This artifact is extremely significant because this is not a footprint. No. It's a shoe print. The other half of the rock slab in turn shows almost perfect mold of the print and the fossils. The shoe print is 10.25 inches long and 3.5 inches wide. The heel is indented slightly like the sole of a modern shoe and seems to have crushed a living trilobite. The obvious problem is the artifacts creates is that trilobites lived between 300 and 600 million years ago.
There's that 300 again.
300 again. Yet here is evidence that a person wearing a shoe crushed one beneath his heel. The heel of the fossil print even displays fine stitching similar to that found on a model leather shoe. Go figure. Yeah, wow. That is interesting.
That's cool.
I wonder if there's a high resolution photos of that.
You keep going, brother.
The Droper stones. Before we move on to the Droper stones, the Eka stones.
Ah, yes.
So I had a bit of a chat to Bob, who's over in Peru.
Yep.
I was talking to him about a few other bits and pieces the other night, and he basically corroborated what Max said. Is that yes, some of them have been fakes. Obviously, someone started making money, so there were some fakes made, which is fair enough.
People want to make some money.
Yeah, but there's some weird shit about those stones, right? And this 300 million, 600 million, like the timeline blowing out, Bob doesn't exactly disagree with.
Okay.
And he's going to share some more about that in the near future on the show. He's going to come back on and
that's interesting.
We're going to talk megaliths.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
So basically the amnesia theory just gets more and more iterations back further of possible future past generations.
That's right.
Sort of thing.
That's right. So
it's weird. It's weird because, we do have that. There are some of those artifacts that sort of show like a crossover between sort of dinosaurs and humans. And either some survived that never got into the fossil record and we lived back further than we did, or we just lived way back. Who knows, man? It's a crazy thought.
Well, I still think, and I actually floated this by Bob and he found it interesting.
Yeah. Is
that does a cataclysm accelerate the carbon timeline or decelerate? You know what I mean? Like, I said that. So it's like, it's all based on carbon that they're doing this dating or what they believe to understand it, right? What if cataclysms, a big fucking rock from the sky or a super volcano or whatever, take your pick, right?
Yep.
What if that, because you're measuring the spaces between the carbon and all that sort of stuff to get your timeline.
Well, and the amount of isotopes left sort of thing, because you've got a half-life.
But does cataclysm accelerate or decelerate that process?
It's very possible. Let's also not forget the fact that the further back timelines go, you start to then take crustal displacement into it.
That's right.
And you've got these massive subduction zones. So anything that was at those rift areas is either covered in lava or it's been melted back into the mantle underneath the crust.
And you take in the basketball theory or, whichever way you want to go with it, you know what I mean?
But like if you're going back 300 million years, you can take all that crust movement into account.
Well, I mean, isn't it that wasn't the Eka stones? It was like 13 million years ago.
Yes.
They estimated with some of the maps that were on those stones.
Yes, with some of the drawings and stuff that was there, they estimated them to be at 13 million years.
Yeah, right. Fascinating stuff. Let's find about Droper stones, mate.
Let's do it.
There are very few artifacts more mystifying than the Droper stones. The tale of the stones is quite an amazing story and some time should be given for a reasonable account. I just love this story. And the difference between, if you just got to say, because we just mentioned the grammar again. So we've read 4 articles now. It's not been good in any of them, really. The scientific one's better, but then they waffle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Max knows how to write a story.
This was written when proofreading was done.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our tale begins in 1938, high in the Bayankara Ula Mountains on the border between China and Tibet. A group of archaeologists led by a Professor Chi Pu Tei were exploring a series of interlinked caves, no surprise there, when much to their surprise they came upon a collection of neatly arranged graves, excuse me, within the cave system. The graves contained within them a number of somewhat unusual skeletal remains, and the scientists at first surmised that they had discovered a new species of ape. However, since it is unreasonable to conclude that apes buried each other, it was deduced that their skeletons could only be of an unusual and possibly hitherto unknown race of beings. The remains were quite unique in that they were around only 5 foot in height, had unnaturally spindly bodies, and quite large, overdeveloped heads. Betcha they were elongated. Can't see the picture yet. While the archaeological team was studying the skeletons, one of the men also accidentally stumbled across a large round stone disc that lay half buried in the dust on the floor of the cave. The disc had a hole in the center and a fine spiral groove radiated to the rim and looked ridiculously like a kind of Stone Age gramophone record. I think I've seen this. Closer inspection, however, showed that the spiraling groove was in fact a continuous line of tiny and very closely written characters that had been somehow meticulously inscribed on the surface of the disc. The object appeared, was indeed a record of sorts, though not of the gramophone variety. On the walls of the caves themselves, the archaeologists also discovered crude pictures of the rising sun, the moon, the earth, and some unidentifiable stars, all joined together by lines of pea-sized dots. The discs and the cave drawings have both been dated to around 12,000 years old. That's an interesting number considering what's happened since then.
It's quite an interesting number, isn't it?
Elongated skulls. The disc is fascinating. I think, we're looking at, we're so used to cleaner pictures now.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these pictures, we got to look some of this stuff up. In all, 716 such discs were eventually found and retrieved from within the cave system. All have been dated as being between 10,000 and 12,000 years old. That's an interesting time frame.
Mm.
Each stone disc is precisely 9 inches, 22.7.
How did they date them, though? They would have dated them off the
dirt
stuff
in the cave
that was on them.
Yeah, the dirt in the
so
cave.
The dirt in the cave was that old.
Yeah.
The discs came from before the cataclysm.
That's right. So this is obviously the records of something, you know what I mean?
Could be. Yeah, 100%.
It's the CDs, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, 9 inches thick, 22.7 centimeters in diameter, and 3/4 inch, 2 centimeters thick. Each disc has a perfectly circular 2 centimeter hole in the exact center, and each bears an inscription in the form of strange carved hieroglyphs. For 20 years after their discovery, all attempts to translate them having failed. The disc sat in the Peking Museum, mostly forgotten. Finally, in 1963, another Chinese professor, Dr. Sum Noi, was finally able to break the code and set about deciphering the discs. And it's here the story becomes even more intriguing. Initially, the professor's conclusions on the meaning of the discs was considered so shattering that his transcriptions were suppressed, and he was forbidden to publish his findings by the Peking Academy of Prehistory. We just keep hearing that over and over and over again.
It didn't fit the paradigm.
However, 2 years later, in 1965, Dr. Nui and 4 of his colleagues at last received permission to release the transcription. The story it told was astounding to say the least, for the discs told the tale of a spaceship, perhaps more like a probe or a scout ship, from a distant planet that crash-landed in the Himalayan mountains region thousands of years ago. They tell how the surviving occupants of the spacecraft, the Dropa, had taken refuge in the caves of the mountains, but despite their peaceful intentions, they had been misunderstood by the members of the local Ham tribe who were occupying the neighboring caves. The Ham tribe distrusted them and hunted down the survivors and killed some of them. According to Dr. Sum Noi, one of the first lines of the hieroglyphs reads, "The Dropas came down from the clouds in their aircraft. Our men, women, and children hid in caves 10 times before sunrise. When at last they understood the sign language of the Dropas, they realized that the newcomers had peaceful intentions." Another section mentions that the Ham tribe eventually became the friends of the droper, and even expressed regret that their spaceship had crash landed in such remote and inaccessible mountains, and that there had been no way of building a new one to enable the droper to return to their own planet. However, in those 27 years since the discovery of the first disk, archaeologists and anthropologists have also learned a good deal more about the isolated Bayan Kara Ula region, and much of the information seemed to corroborate the bizarre story recorded on the discs. Local legends still surviving the area also speak of small, gaunt, yellow-faced men who came from the clouds long, long ago. These legends tell of men who had huge, bulging heads and puny bodies and were considered to be so ugly and repellent that they were hunted down by local tribesmen on horseback, and many were killed. The description of the invaders is also remarkably close to the skeletons originally discovered in the caves in 1938 by Professor Chi Pu Tai. Most interestingly, the cave systems of Bayan Kara Ula Mountains area are still inhabited today by two semi-troglodyte tribes known as the Hams and the Dropers. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
The Droper tribesmen are themselves extremely odd in appearance, being somewhat frail and stunted by averaging only about 5 feet in height. They're neither typically Chinese nor Tibetan, and anthropologists readily admit their racial background really is a mystery. Are the Droper the descendants of the people mentioned in the discs? Do these strange discs actually record a disastrous space mission by alien astronauts 12,000 years ago? Nearly all the leading theorists believe so. We may never know for sure, but the message contained in the discs is extremely fascinating nonetheless. That's new to me.
We need a full
investigation into the Droper discs.
Sitchin-esque tablet, Sumerian tablets sort of style thing, man. Funny thing is, they don't mention in this article, but
this chapter.
But this. This title, this section. They don't mention that. They mention any cataclysms, though.
No.
So this could have, like we said before, this could have possibly happened pre-cataclysm.
Yeah.
If a cataclysm happened at all, we've got to leave that. That could be a possibility, but it could have quite possibly happened pre that, and then. But I mean, if you've got skeletons, now you can date skeletons.
Yeah, it's true.
You can't date discs.
But see, all these skeletons go missing like everything else does, man. You know what I mean? All the giant skeletons go missing, all the paracas.
So let's not. Well, the thing is, right, let's not worry about the sorry, I just blanked for a second. The DNA of the modern day Dropers.
Yeah. What does that say?
It'll be quite easy to test the DNA of them versus the DNA of these other skeletons that we are in possession of. So it's there's some gaps there that are very easy to fill.
Very easy to fill.
If as long as the skeletons haven't gone missing.
Which they probably have.
They probably have.
Yeah. And you got to remember, this is 20 years ago, so DNA
100%
technology and all the ability to do that has accelerated a lot.
That's right. We could definitely quite easily do things this day and age that we couldn't back then. Would you like me to take it from here, my friend?
Do you want to? Yeah, I think this is up your alley, mate.
Oh, I've had a few fingers up my alley. A fossilized human finger. Another similar artifact that simply just should not exist is this fossilized human finger. The fossil, known simply as DM93-083, dates from the Cretaceous period, or about 100 to 110 million years ago. X-rays of the specimen have also shown some less dense areas within the finger, revealing the presence of marrow within the bone, shown in the slide by the darker areas. Ah, yes. Figure 41. That's it. Oh, that was a nice quick one.
Short one. Just a fossilized human finger, 100 million years old.
Wow.
You know,
a fossilized finger.
Yeah, exactly. How do they know it's human finger?
Look, it looks a lot like a human finger.
But here's another thing too. Nowadays, you could drill a tiny hole into there and extract the bone marrow and do testing on it.
Oh, but not if it's been fully fossilized. If it's been fossilized, all the material has been replaced with minerals.
And I suppose they're just measuring the different densities.
It's just a density, exactly. That's right. A brass bell in coal, in a discovery in 1944 that by now is almost becoming commonplace. A man called Newton Anderson found this quaint brass bell inside a lump of coal that was mined near his house in West Virginia. Newton dropped the lump and it broke, revealing the bell encased inside. The bell underwent rigorous testing and was extensively analyzed at the University of Oklahoma and found to contain known metals but mixed together in an unusual blend and quite different from any modern alloys. Numerous other such discoveries in coal have ever been recorded, including the delicate gold chain mentioned previously and a cast iron pot that was also found inside a coal seam. Interesting. What's that skull?
What the skull's doing there?
I don't know. Maybe it's in the next bit. Maybe it's the Rhodesian man. In 1921, a Neanderthal skull was discovered 60 feet below ground in Rhodesia that produced a strange mystery. Upon examination, it appeared that the skull had been pierced by a high-velocity projectile similar to a bullet in the left temple. Tests have shown, there's
a bullet hole there.
It's like a 22 caliber bullet. Tests have shown that the injury must have indeed occurred at the moment of death and not from a stray bullet years afterwards. This means that whoever fired the fatal bullet must have done it thousands of years ago. According to author Rien Norbergen, a German forensic authority from Berlin has positively stated that the cranial damage to Rhodesian man's skull could not have been caused by anything but a bullet. The rounded entry point of the wound also testifies to the great speed which the projectile would have had to have been traveling. Yes, it is a very nice, clean.
It's a clean hole.
Clean hole. That's a clean hole. Oh my goodness.
I'll take over if you want.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Oh. So I wanted to do this because I purposely haven't read this one. I wanted to read this one. A pillar of too much pure iron.
Much too pure iron.
Much too pure iron? Yeah, if you're going to read it correctly. In Delhi, India. India is such a mystery, man. Just
dude,
unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
There is an iron pillar that has been completely defied metallurgists by remaining absolutely rust-free for the last 1,600 years, ever since its discovery by the West. It's unclear of how long the pillar has actually been standing for. In fact, there is more than one of these in India. The problem lies in the fact that such rust-free iron of the type that is found in these pillars is unheard of in our modern technology. These iron pillars are in fact a metallurgist's nightmare or dream, depending on your mindset. One truly interesting thing is the fact that the only other place completely rust-free iron has been located in rock samples that were brought back from the moon during the Apollo missions. So
they would be rust-free because
they're not subjected to the
no oxygen.
Exactly.
Very low oxygen.
Different atmosphere. No water, all that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
So
heat.
So where on earth did the iron used to make these pillars in India come from in ancient times? Well, they made it with copper chisels, man.
Of course.
Some people have theories on where such pillars are from. Save that thought. They're interesting, aren't they? Just random metal pillars. Oh, he's just teased us with that. I thought he was going to go deep. Save that thought. He's just teased us. Max, mate, that's not very nice. I wanted more on that.
Blue balls on that. Yeah. I wanted to finish.
2.8 billion-year-old metal spheres. Oh, yeah. In the most bizarre series of finds that are still ongoing for the past 60 years or so, miners in Africa have been finding literally hundreds of metal spheres, some from quite deep underground, and at least one of them, possibly more, has 3 parallel grooves running around its circumference. The spheres seem to come in 2 types. One is of a solid bluish metal and has white flecks in it, and the others are hollow with a kind of spongy center. The curator of the Museum of Klerksdorp in South Africa, where many of the spheres are housed, that Klerksdorp.
It threw you, didn't it?
Me, man. Where many of the spheres are housed, Mr. Rolf Marx describes them this way. The spheres are a complete mystery. They look man-made, yet at the time in Earth's history when they came to rest in this rock, no intelligent life existed. They're nothing like I've ever seen before. Rolf Marx also wrote a further letter dated September 12, 1984, that contains more information on the spheres. In it, he wrote, "There is nothing scientifically published about the globes, but the facts are they are found in pyrophyllite, which is mined near the little town of Ottosdal in the western Transvaal." The South African Dutch stuff's a bit much, isn't it? This pyrophyllite, I'm not going to read that, is quite a soft secondary mineral with a count of only 3 on the Mohs scale, and was formed by sedimentation about 2.8 billion years ago. On the other hand, the globes, which have a fibrous structure on the inside with a shell around it, are very hard and cannot be scratched even by steel. The Mohs scale of hardness was devised and is named after Frederick Mohs, who chose 10 minerals as reference points for comparative hardness, with talc being the softest and diamond the hardest. However, if the mere existence of these metal spheres is not enough, there is still another amazing property of the artifacts that captured the attention of Mr. John Hund of Petersburg about 15 years ago. While playing with one of the objects on the flat surface of a table one day, Hund apparently noticed that the spheres seemed to be particularly well balanced, so he decided to take it to the California Space Institute at the University of California for testing to determine just exactly how well balanced it actually was. What the results of the test surprisingly showed is that the sphere was in fact balanced perfectly and exactly. The balance of the sphere was in fact so exact that it exceeded the limits of any of the Space Institute's current measuring technology. And these are the people who make gyro compasses for NASA. Not too badly balanced at all, really. So I wonder which one was it, the one with the 3 stripes that he took? Like which one did he take?
Looks like a kookaburra, mate. Looks like a fucking red king.
Yeah, it does,
with
doesn't
the
it?
3
Yeah.
Someone's bowling seamers 280 billion years ago.
That's right.
But look, they don't look very well balanced either.
No.
Like I'm looking at from those pictures. I don't know which one they fucking measured.
The sedimentary rock in which most of these spheres were found is located well below the surface in deep underground mines, estimated to be 2.8 billion years old. So, I mean, and is it just our research brain? So, where's the photo of the one that he took to the Space Institute?
Yeah. Because even that one on the left, which looks better than the ones on the right, still got lumps in it by the looks of it. How can that be balanced?
The crystal skulls.
I'll take it from here, my big man. Crystal skulls are mine. Perhaps it's because they are fashioned in the shape of human skulls, or maybe it's due to the hint of some dark and mysterious curse. Whatever the reason may be, there are a few artifacts that have generated more interest than the crystal skulls.
Even Indiana went after them.
That's right. And it's got to be deep if Indiana's after them. There have actually been several crystal skulls of quite incredible workmanship found in various places around the world, perhaps the most widely celebrated and also the most mysterious of these is the Mitchell-Hedges skull, which has also been known as the Skull of Doom.
The Skull of Doom.
There are at least 3 very good reasons for this. Firstly, the skull is very similar in form and size to an actual human skull, even featuring a fitted and removable jawbone, while most other known crystal skulls are of a more stylized or avant-garde appearance, quite often with unrealistic features and teeth that are simply etched onto the surface of the crystal. Secondly, it is as yet unknown how the Mitchell-Hedges skull was constructed. From a scientific and technical perspective, it appears to be an utterly impossible object that has been made to a ridiculous degree of perfection by an unknown technique, which today's most talented sculptors and engineers are still unable to duplicate. Even by modern methods, and quite simply should not exist. Thirdly, it is a complete mystery as to where the skull actually comes from. The discovery of the skull is still a controversial matter and one that has been brought into question many times. The story goes like this. A British explorer by the name of F.A. Michael Mitchell-Hedges embarked on several expeditions in the aim of searching for evidence of the lost civilization of Atlantis. He claims that his stepdaughter, Anna, unearthed the skull in 1927 during such an expedition that he had led into the ancient Mayan ruins of Lubantun in Belize, then called British Honduras. According to Mitchell Hedges, Anna, then 17 years old, was searching inside a structure that was believed to have once been a temple when she found the discovery. Oh, keep going. Put that line up the top. Yeah, when she found the cranium of the skull, of the crystal skull inside. At the time of the discovery, the skull was lacking its jawbone, which was itself found 3 months later, about 25 feet away from where the cranium had been.
Been found.
That's just rude. Yeah, keep going.
Isn't it? Why did you?
Been found. Mitchell Hedges says that
I tried to help you out there and highlight the word.
I know. We're trying.
Yeah.
Mitchell Hedges says that he felt the object held some special significance and claims that he didn't want to take the skull away from the site where it had been found and offered it to local priests, but that the Mayans had then given the skull back to him as a gift upon his departure. A dubious tale at best. Michael Mitchell Hedges was born in 1882.
Smells like a bit of bullshit to me.
And died in 1959, and hence there lies the problem. He was known by his friends as a charming rogue. The lovable rogue. Sounds a bit like Indiana. At one stage of his career, he was even known as the British Baron von Munchausen. He was an explorer, an author, a gambler, and a soldier with Pancho Villa during the Mexican Revolution. He was undoubtedly a very colorful and quite roguish character.
Roguish. There's a word we don't hear anymore.
He sounds like
Indiana Jones.
Han Solo.
Yeah.
You know, he sounds
Indiana
like
Jones, man.
What is that actor's name?
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford played quite a few of those characters. You know, the lovable rogue.
Lovable rogue, yeah.
The rather impressive initials that he had next to his name actually resulted from him having joined the London Zoological Society and enabled him to enter the zoo on Sundays. Although I think that he may have actually founded the society to begin with.
Oh, sweet. He's a fan. There's the Mitchell Hedges skull.
There's the skull.
Which the Dan Aykroyd's Crystal Skull vodka, which we've got over there, is modeled on that.
Is it?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. If you look at that and look at the skull, it's actually a smaller version of the Mitchell Hedges skull.
There you go. Very cool. Many people found Mitchell Hedges' story to be questionable at the time, and evidence now shows that his tale of the skull's discovery was probably entirely fabricated. There are no known photographs of the skull among those that were taken during any of his Lubantun expeditions, and there is no record of Mitchell Hedges ever displaying or even acknowledging any existence of the skull any time prior to 1943. It is also interesting that when he took the skull on a trip to South Africa in 1947, Mitchell Hedges himself made this cryptic remark about the skull. "We took with us the sinister skull of doom, of which much has been written. How it came into my possession, I have reason for not revealing." Because a dude made it for me. Yeah. Possibly.
I've got to keep
Yet
going.
the story, he had always maintained that it was found by his stepdaughter. So why would he have reason for not revealing how he came by the object? Because it created intrigue.
Yeah.
Many believe that the skull was placed there for the young girl to find, but if Mitchell Hedges did indeed put the skull in the temple for Anna to find in 1927 and just never let on about it until 1943, then where did he actually get it from prior to 1927? There are several other theories on how Mitchell Hedges came to be in possession of the skull, and a number of books have been written on the subject. One theory suggests that the skull is actually a 12,000-year-old artifact that has been handed down from an ancient civilization through the Knights Templar and eventually coming into the custodianship of the inner circle of the Masons Lodge. Mitchell Hedges was in fact an inner circle Mason and may have acquired it through the lodge or possibly from a lodge gambling debt. Another theory is that it may have been looted from a pyramid on one of the Mexican expeditions, which is why he may not have wanted to reveal how he came by it, which that was one of my thoughts before when we were reading is
he's nicked it.
Maybe and he did hold onto it for a while because he couldn't.
Yeah,
he didn't want to tell anyone how he come by it because someone might try and take it off him.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
Yeah,
probably had to kill some villagers to escape with it.
With
their idol.
Yeah.
You know, when he put the sandbag on the thing and took the crystal skull and ran out past the boulder.
That's right, with a whip.
Dun, 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 dun.
That we need. If we ever get sound buttons, we need that.
Yeah. Definitely. You need the whip. That could be actually. Oh, dude, I'm pretty sure I had one of those read along books when I was a child.
Yeah.
And when you turn the page,
it
was the whip that. Yeah. Oh, dude, you just took me back 30 years. Another theory is that it may have been looted from a pyramid, and we just read that.
Yeah.
Another more fascinating theory holds that the Knights Templar had been in possession of it for centuries, but had previously moved the skull to Lubanton many years before to prevent it from falling into the hands of the Vatican, and that Mitchell Hedges had been purposely sent to the site by the Freemasons to retrieve the artifact.
And because we just had Damus on with the Knights Templar, you know, like you could join. That's not difficult to join together.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not. But it comes down to a timeline because Knights Templar were with the Vatican there for quite a while.
Yeah, they were.
And then they got kicked out by the King of France. Then they came back.
Yeah.
Then they were, whatever.
Refer back to Conspiracy and Control. Damus slays the Knights Templar.
It's all there. Damus is all across it, better than what I bloody am.
Yeah.
Let's move down. That's another good.
It's another good picture of it.
Is you sure that's a picture of it? No, I'm just I know the jaw is movable, but look at the teeth, and now go down to the next teeth.
Yeah, maybe not.
Could be one of the drawn-on ones.
Yeah, it could be.
Because that jaw does not look like it comes off.
No, it doesn't. That's a 46B one. So yeah, it's a different picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In a somewhat less romantic series of events, however, it is believed that in reality, Mitchell Hedges purchased the skull in 1943 at an auction at Sotheby's Auction House in London. This has now been reasonably verified by documents found at the British Museum, which had in fact bid against Mitchell Hedges for the crystal artifact at the same sale. The Sotheby's records show that the artifact was actually purchased by Mitchell Hedges from one Sidney Burney, but the museum could only go as high as £340. Burney then sold the skull to Mitchell Hedges for £400 So now the question becomes, who was Sidney Burney and how on earth did the skull come into his possession? Unfortunately, no other records remain of anyone called Sidney Burney.
Sounds like a fake name.
Sidney Burney.
Yeah. The thing is, you used to have to write your name on a book back then. My name's Sidney Burney. I'm selling a skull.
And back, it doesn't fit the time either.
Yeah.
Sidney Burney.
Yeah.
I don't know. They seem to have more syllables in their name than Sidney Burney. The enigmatic skull remains in the possession of Anna Mitchell Hedges, who even after all these years continues to maintain that she discovered the skull, even though the Sotheby's auction has been verified, and there is a considerable reason to question that she was ever present at the Lubarton expedition at all. If there is any truth to the tale at all, and she was present at the expedition, then there is little, doubt that Mitchell Hedges actually placed the skull in the temple for her to find. Anna still often displays the skull on frequent final tours, and she now lives in Canada. Sounds a bit like John Farnham.
John Farnham's back.
I'm pretty sure I saw a doco on this, and I'm pretty sure this is pure memory. I could be making it up, but I'm pretty sure she even passed a lie detector test. So she believes
yeah.
her own lie so much. She's told the story, whether, she's either told the story so many times that it's
become fact,
or maybe it did happen that she found it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But yeah, I'd be John Farnham the shit out of that.
Yeah, you would.
That's a good, it's all a good story. And
the thing is, it exists, right? The crystal skull exists.
And the apple never falls far from the tree. So, the lovable rogue lives on. Give me a second there, my good man.
You're all right, mate. Look, I think, the crystal skull, that's another one of those things that echoes through eternity as well. There's a reason that they made an Indiana Jones out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Moving right along. The Mitchell's Hedges skull is made of clear quartz crystal. Both cranium and mandible are perfectly proportioned and are believed to have been fashioned from the same solid piece of crystal. It weighs 11.7 pounds and is about 5 inches high, 5 inches wide, 7 inches long. Except for some very slight anomalies in the temples and cheekbones, it is an anatomically perfect replica of a human skull. Because of its small size and other characteristics, it is thought to bear a closer resemblance to a female skull than a male's, which has led many to refer to the Mitchell Hedges skull as she. In 1970, the Mitchell Hedges, I'm going to just say MH family from now on, because Mitchell Hedges getting a bit old. Family loaned the skull to the Hewlett. Oh, then they hit me with another one. Hewlett Packard Laboratories in Santa Clara, California, for extensive studies. HP is a computer equipment manufacturer and a leading facilities for crystal research. The studies were conducted by an art restorer named Frank Dorland, who oversaw the testing procedure, and the HP examinations yielded some quite remarkable results. Researchers discovered that the skull had actually been cleverly carved against the natural axis of the crystal. To explain, the axis or orientation of a crystal's molecular symmetry is an important aspect of crystal cutting and is something that is always taken into account by modern crystal sculptors, because if they carve against the natural axis, the piece will usually shatter. This is true even when using lasers and other high-tech cutting methods, and yet the skull is cut against the natural axis. Then, to exacerbate the issue of the object even further, the HP tests could find no trace of microscopic scratches on the surface of the crystal either. Such microscopic signs that would be a welcome indication that it had been carved with metal instruments or other tools.
Yeah, there's a couple of different versions in there.
A couple of different skull versions. Finally, after a series of exhaustive tests and microscopic examinations, Dorland's best possible hypothesis for the skull's construction was that it had been roughly hewn out by using something like diamonds, and then the detail and cleanup work would have been very meticulously done using a gentle solution of silicon sand and water, but assuming that it could really have been done that way at all, which is the only possible way that anyone can think of. The entire somewhat exhausting job would have then required the combined and devoted services of an extremely gifted group of sculptors working in shifts, and required a labor of continuous man hours totaling about 300 years to complete. Under these circumstances, experts believe that successfully crafting a shape as complex as Mitchell Hedges' skull by hand is quite frankly impossible, as one HP researcher is said to have remarked. The damned thing just simply shouldn't exist. What was that? What was that?
What was that? Okay.
I don't know.
That came through the computer, I think. Anyway.
Okay. I was just worried it may have stopped. We'll just check the recording, make sure it's still going. We're all
still
going.
Recording. Yeah.
What was the gentleman's name? The engineer who measured all the Egyptian stuff.
Chris Dunn.
It'd be interesting for get Chris's hands onto it, and
Yeah, it would be.
Get his hypothesis.
Yeah.
Wow. The mysteries of the skull, however, do not end there. The skull has been fashioned in such a way that the zygomatic arches, the bone arches that extend along the sides of the front of the cranium, are accurately separated from the skull piece and act as light pipes using the principles of optics to channel light from the base of the skull to the eye sockets.
Wow.
The eye sockets are miniature concave lenses that transfer light either from the bone arches or from the source below into the upper cranium, while in the interior of the skull is a ribbon prism and small light tunnels which greatly magnifies and brightens objects that are held beneath the skull. Interesting. Strange.
I didn't know these details.
Yes, interesting, I say. Strange powers and manifestations have also been attributed to the Mitchell-Hedges skull. During his years of testing the skull at Hewlett-Packard, Frank Dorland says it sometimes displayed strange characteristics. Dorland says that often the eyes would flicker as though alive, and still other observers have reported strange odors and sounds emanating from the object or Dorland's ass. It has been known to give off sensations of heat and cold to those who touch it, even though the actual crystal has always remained at a constant physical temperature of 70 degrees Fahrenheit under all conditions, and has also produced sensations of thirst and sometimes of taste in some instances.
70 degrees Fahrenheit. I would want to know what that is in Celsius. My phone's all the way over there.
Look, I'm going to say it's around 30 degrees.
Yeah. Because I was just, the thought I had is that what is the ambient temperature of the planet? Because isn't the inside of the pyramids the ambient temperature of the planet?
Yeah, but they would be much lower than 30. They would be
it's like 21 or 22
somewhere
or
there.
like that. Yeah,
because
anyway.
the ground temperature is usually like here in southeast Queensland is usually about 19 degrees.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, no, sorry.
Never mind. It was good tangents, mate. Good man. Under all conditions, and has also produced sensations of thirst, sometimes taste in some instances. Dorland and others also took strange photographs of the skull. Sorry, I just got a picture in my mind. Strange photographs of the skull, like Dorland with no pants on.
yeah,
like with his nuts hanging over it.
Selfie type stuff.
Yeah. Looking into it, very Shakespearean-esque. The skull has also many times been reported to emanate a glowing aura. Other observers have reported that occasionally the skull will change color. Sometimes the frontal cranium may become cloudy, while at other times it remains perfectly clear. Sometimes it will start off cloudy and then clear right up as if the space within the skull had disappeared into an empty void over a period of 5 to 6 minutes. A dark spot often begins forming on the right side and slowly spreads until it has blackened the entire skull, then recedes and disappears as mysteriously as it came. Again, a different skull.
Different skull, yeah.
Still others, including Mitchell-Hedges himself, have said that the skull holds a curse, and for this reason, it is also sometimes known as the Skull of Doom.
Skull of Doom.
Mitchell-Hedges is known to have referred to the skull as the embodiment of evil and said that some people who have laughed cynically at the skull have died, while others have become stricken and seriously ill. It is doubtful that any such curse actually exists, at least not one that will kill, as it is believed to be the case with the infamous Hope Diamond. In fact, it may be quite the opposite. Mitchell-Hedges was in possession of the skull for over 30 years with no harmful effects, and during that time he actually survived 8 bullet wounds, 3 knife attacks, before dying at the age of 77.
Gee, he was a busy boy. 8 bullet wounds and 3 knife attacks.
Yeah, this guy lived an exciting life by the sounds of it. Oh, hang on, let me just correct my posture.
You're right, mate. This is a deep one. I'll take over for a little while after this one.
Yeah, not a problem. 1959. One other interesting theory about the skull was put forth by Nick Nocerino in the book Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed, which holds that the crystal skull record vibrations in the form of images of events that have occurred around them. In this way, they seem to work as video cameras of sorts, recording holographic scenes. The authors believe that the Mitchell-Hedges skull is part of a set and that there are actually 13 such skulls that exist, and the rest are still kept in a chamber beneath Potala Palace in Tibet. The general opinion of the book is that the skulls are actually of extraterrestrial origin. Unfortunately, none of this brings us any closer to solving the mystery of the mysterious object, for the questions still remain. Where did it originally come from, and who made it? The Mitchell-Hedges skull is not the only crystal skull to have been found. There are two other skulls quite similar to it.
Some of the pictures we've been looking at.
Ah, yes. They're not clearly remarkable. These are known as the British crystal skull, the Paris crystal skull. Both artifacts are said to have been bought by mercenaries in Mexico in the 1890s, possibly even as part of the same purchase. The British and Paris skulls are extremely similar in size and shape. In fact, so much so that some have speculated that one skull was used as a model to produce the others. Both skulls are made of clear but cloudy crystal and are not nearly as finely sculpted as the Mitchell-Hedges skull. The features are only superficially etched onto the surface and appear somewhat incomplete. The British crystal skull is on display at London's Museum of Mankind, while the Paris crystal skull is kept at the Trocadero Museum in Paris. Further examples of primitively sculpted skulls are a couple called the Mayan crystal skull and the amethyst skull. They were discovered in the early 1900s in Guatemala and Mexico, respectively, and were brought to the US by a Mayan priest. The amethyst skull is made of purple quartz, and the Mayan skull is clear, but the two are otherwise very alike. Like the Mitchell-Hedges skull, both of them were studied at Hewlett-Packard, and they too were found to be inexplicably cut against the axis of the crystal.
Okay.
However, the only other known crystal skull that comes close to resembling the Mitchell-Hedges skull is the one called the rose quartz crystal skull. Is it that one? Ah, yes, it's got the eye sockets and stuff like that.
Smaller though.
Yes, looks tiny. Looks like
It's
like an inch and a half or so,
something like that.
However, the only other close to resembling the Mitchell, which was reported as being found near the border of the Honduras and Guatemala. It is not clear in color and is slightly large. And is slightly larger than the Mitchell-Hedges, but boasts a comparable level of craftsmanship, including a removable lower jaw.
That's not that.
That's not that.
Must be this one.
Must be,
because that's the little pink skull.
Yeah, it's tiny.
And it just said it was. Yeah. Okay.
It says it's rose quartz, which I thought that was.
Yeah.
But it
doesn't
have
have
a removable jaw, and it doesn't, and it's tiny. So anyway, and is also the case with Mitchell-Hedges skull. Many have attributed strange and psychic properties to the rose quartz skull. The history of the amethyst skull is unclear. It was reportedly part of the collection of crystal skulls that were in the possession of the Mexican president Diaz from 1876 to 1910. There are also reports that the skull was discovered in the
Oaxaca.
I'm sure there's a really good pronunciation from that, but we'll go with Oaxaca area in Mexico, and was handed down from generation to generation through an order of Mayan priests. It is now believed to reside in San Jose, California, with a group of businessmen who have apparently offered it for sale. Regardless of any earthly or unearthly properties the crystal skulls may or may not possess, the question still remains: where did they come from?
Done well, mate.
There are countless theories on the subject. Some suggest that there are the creation of some higher intelligence. Others believe they were created by extraterrestrials or a legacy left behind from beings that lived in Atlantis or Lemuria. Wherever they came from and whatever their purpose, there can be no doubt that in the intriguing realm of ancient artifacts, there are few antiquities that are as thought-provoking or have brought more controversy and debate as these carved crystal skulls. The Museum of Man in London also contains a crystal skull of indeterminate origin that was purchased by them at the turn of the last century from an antiquity dealer in New York. The Man Museum skull is called the Aztec skull. It is interesting to note that the museum no longer keeps it on display, though it can be viewed by request. This is because several museum personnel, as well as many visitors, have claimed that the skull moves on its own within the glass case in which it is enclosed.
Well, number one, well done, mate. That was epic.
Thanks, brother. I'm just going to take a little go to the little boy's room while you read this next bit.
Well, we can pause for a second, mate. That's we have the ability, man.
Sure. Pause it up, bro. I'll start the stumble there at the end because I'm like,
And we're back, mate. Just had a quick little break there. That's okay.
Little boy's room.
Well, let's jump before we're sort of heading towards the end of this episode. We just had a bit of a discussion during the quick break then. However, when the sort of like the images coming out of because there was a lot in that crystal skull. Kudos, man. That was deep and a lot of detail that I hadn't heard before, like the refraction through the skull and all that sort of stuff against the grain is very interesting as well. But I was thinking with the picture thing, Richard Patterson saw that crystal. He shone a torch through it and showed a picture on the wall. Right?
Yeah, right. Yep.
So we've actually got two bits of corroborating evidence for crystal being able to reflect picture.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's a lot of those sort of stories of crystal skulls and stuff watching you. You know what I mean? That's another thing that sort of gets thrown around as well. Yeah, look, I don't know. Look, the Mitchell Hedges skull sounds dodgy. I'd say it come out of some collection. Where did it originally come from? I don't think we'll ever know, to be perfectly honest.
But like Max says, doesn't matter how Mitchell Hedges came about.
It still exists.
It still exists.
And it's still weird.
Yeah. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll move on. The Nampa image. During the drilling of a well in Nampa, Idaho in 1889, a tiny figurine of baked clay was brought up amongst the debris churned out by the huge drill bit. The object is a 1 inch long figure of a man with one leg broken off at the knee, possibly from coming in contact with the drill bit. The possibility of the object being a hoax is extremely doubtful, as it was extracted from a depth of around 300 feet, making the possibility of someone planting it there highly unlikely. Today, the controversial little object remains the property of Charles F. Adams and is still displayed in a glass case at Bosie's Park Museum in Boston. Scientists still cannot agree whether the object is genuine relic or merely a unique little oddity.
Well, let's just look at the odds of that coming up the drill holes. This
6 inches,
150 mil approximately.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but they're not exactly large. So we're going a depth of what 300 feet down.
Yeah,
and a across a large area. The likelihood of drilling down onto that thing is so minuscule.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say right now, but I'm just looking at the facts that
how did it come back up the pipe? You know what I mean? I was in drilling for a long time.
How did
mud comes over
one piece?
Mud comes over the shaker. I mean, this is old. This is new school. It's 1889, so I don't know how they did it.
Well, I dare say that it's 300 feet ain't that deep.
No,
that's what's at 100 meters. So it sounds like bore drilling.
Yeah, water
drilling.
Yeah,
is what they're drilling for there. So for 100 meters deep, are they using augers still?
Yeah, they might be big augers. Yeah,
because
maybe.
the ass, like some of the heads we get, the pneumatic heads and shit these days, man, it's not coming up in one piece.
No.
It's
No. Yeah, well, I mean,
it's
that was that
smashing
was an
through
8-inch, 10-inch auger that I used to do the fence, so that was quite wide.
Yeah.
And
so you imagine
the dirt would come up in clumps.
it's like a conveyor belt of steel kind of thing, like a big drill bit, really. Yeah. So if it's like that, I give it a little bit. Oh,
the rocket clock.
The rocket clock's going off. What time is it on the rocket clock? What do you say, rocket clock?
It's time to finish, you dickheads.
All right. Well, let's punch on through. That's only a general guide.
No.
Rocket clock. Thank you, rocket clock, for reminding us.
Yeah. Look, I don't know, man. Look, similar other finds have been made in other drilling operations. In 1852, a well driller in Whiteside County, Illinois, retrieved a copper ring and another copper device shaped like a boat hook from 120 feet below the surface in 1971. A drill bit brought up a bronze coin from a depth of 114 feet just out of Chillicothe in Illinois. You got to remember, what do we look? There all these Idaho, all this sort of stuff. This is all post-cataclysm, right? So when civilization existed on the Americas before that, it was buried by 300 feet of crap, which is probably true.
But all I think of is to bring up
more than just Oopart, man.
To bring up this stuff, it's surely that layer must be scattered with shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
if it's bringing up bits of copper and coin, like how many other coins? If it brought up one coin, how many other coins
did you not
at
see?
that exact level scattered around?
Yeah. And then what did you not see going through the dirt as well? You know what I mean? Like if it comes up in a clump.
Oh yeah.
What didn't you see? What else came out?
Yeah, what else came out? That's right.
You know,
because you notice.
Well, I mean, here's an interesting perception to put it on a bit of a modern time. One of the things that prospectors will do, right, is they'll go out to WA to all these old mines from the 1800s and 1900s.
Oh yeah,
and run over,
scour
their tailings with a metal detector, and find all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, because our shit's so much better than what their shit was.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, they drilled holes out there, run a metal detector over there, and see what comes back. I mean, I think if it was merely a unique little oddity, these random dolls and coins and all this sort of stuff that's found, it's not though. Like there's a lot of this stuff found everywhere. Like there's been supposedly Roman coins found in Australia. You know what I mean? Like there's all this weird stuff that gets found.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. The Dogon. I wanted to get through the Dogon tonight, and we'll see how far we go from there. But
it's all you, big fella.
The Dogon are an African tribe located mainly in the Bandiagara and Douentza districts of Mali, West Africa. The tribe's population, about 300,000, being mostly heavily concentrated along a 200-kilometre stretch of escarpment called the Cliffs of Bandiagara, in which they have managed to fashion some spectacular dwellings for themselves. In the early 20th century, two French anthropologists named Marcel Griol and Germain Dieterlen, guess we've had some words tonight, man.
Well done, mate.
Spent a good deal of time living with the Dogon in order to study their ways. In 1930, after they'd been living with the tribe for some 15 years, 4 Dogon priests decided that it was time to take the Frenchmen into their confidence and invited the men to share in the tribe's most important and secret tradition. The tale was the secret Dogon creation myth about their sacred star, which they named Potolo. The star to which they were referring is Sirius, which is located some 8.6 light years from Earth. Sirius is also the brightest star in the night sky. The Dogon told the anthropologist that Sirius was the home of the gods who had made them and who had made them who they are. They told them that Sirius is the smallest and heaviest thing there is, and that it was white in color. They said that it had a companion star invisible to the human eye, and that it moves around Sirius in an elliptical orbit that takes 50 years. They said Sirius was incredibly heavy and that it rotated on its axis, and they further described it as having a circle of reddish rays around it that is like a spot spreading but staying still. Dogon oral traditions are quite adamantly state that they have known for thousands of years that Jupiter had moons and Saturn had rings around it. Yeah, their dwellings are weird. The Dogon, I'd love to do a bit more of a deep dive into the Dogon. Like their cave dwellings are very interestingly built. Yeah. Like that's the single picture. I've seen some of their stuff. It's very weird. Initially, the men did not see the astronomical importance of what they had been told by the tribe and only offhandedly published the story in an obscure anthropological journal. However, sometime later, the information was noticed by several astronomers and deemed worthy of a further, more detailed investigation. What they discovered was, in fact, the Dogon had in fact accurately described the three principal properties of a white dwarf star: small, heavy, and white, and had also stated that Sirius is a binary star, both of which we now know as the Sirius system to be. They are also absolutely correct in their knowledge of its companion rotation, as Sirius B orbits Sirius A every 49.9 to 50 years. Their description of reddish rays is also quite remarkable, as this space telescope photograph reveals and perfectly describes. Reveals and perfectly describes the DNA type pattern that is made by the elliptical orbit of the two stars rotating around each other as they travel through the sky. Yeah, right. Look at that.
Yeah.
And the reddish haze. Isn't that fascinating? The 5-pointed star as well, or 6-pointed star.
It's interesting.
The Dogon people also use an extremely unorthodox calendar that is based on a 50-year cycle. This cycle is uniquely unusual because it does not follow any cycles coinciding with any movements of our Earth, Moon, or Sun, but instead is based wholly on the rotation movements of Sirius B. In fact, the entire Dogon culture is based around the 50-year cycle of Sirius B. The Dogon people of pre-1930 had no telescopes or real written languages. How is it they were accurately able to describe things we still only possessed a very limited knowledge of? Where did they get their information? The Dogon repeatedly say that they were taught these things many, many years ago by their gods who visited them from their home planet, which orbits Sirius B. The Dogon also described them as being amphibious creatures. It's the gun. Shout out to Bo. What have you got to say about that? I don't know, man. I think we might.
No. My one out of all that, I've got no issues with it, but they orbit Sirius B. Now, Sirius B orbits Sirius A. So at some point, their planet has to come between Sirius A and B if they're orbiting it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's possible.
That's some interesting planetary dynamics.
It would have to orbit both of them. Outside the orbit of Sirius B is where the planet would have to be orbiting. So it would be orbiting Sirius B, but it would be orbiting Sirius A as well.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, if Sirius B and Sirius A are going like that, the planet could be going like this.
Yeah, around the outside of both of them. Yeah.
The Dogon's interesting, man. You know, I mean, how is it?
It's such an anomaly.
Yeah.
How did they come across that kind of information, have it inground in their culture? And it only makes sense that what they're saying is true.
That's right. How else would you know?
Exactly.
How can you know?
No, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And especially at the time,
it's pre-1930.
So information itself is so limited at that time.
Yeah, there was no way for them to know.
No. That's right.
There's no plausible way in the world for them to understand that information.
That's right.
And I don't know, it doesn't say that, but we didn't look like we understood that information until we had a look.
Yeah. And if we did, it would have been a very limited few people.
Yeah, that's right.
Who weren't just traveling around to the Dogons.
That's right.
To impart that knowledge on them in such a way that they ingrain it into their culture.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense as to how the hell they could have possibly got hold of that info. So, yeah, it's weird unless it's just all one big crazy coincidence.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they made it up looking up in the sky and it's just all.
It's all coincidental that everything comes to 100 million, 300 million, 12,000. Like these numbers keep repeating themselves and repeating themselves and repeating themselves. Man.
So yeah, no, that's some crazy info, man.
Look, I think we might leave it there.
We definitely will.
I think we'll leave it there, mate.
Leave it there while we're fresh.
Yeah. Well, mate, another very interesting episode. Loving the new camera, loving the new setup.
Thank you, new camera.
And let us know what you think. That was you pushed through. That was mainly you, man, about the crystal skulls. Like a lot of that detail I didn't know. Yeah, my takeaways tonight, the Droper stones are very interesting. I want to see photos of those.
The whole Droper story.
Yeah, the whole Droper story. And the
found in China in the cave.
Are they
skeletons,
still a tribe? Blah blah blah.
That whole story that needs deep diving.
Yeah,
that's a whole episode.
Yeah,
we need someone who has. Come on, please China's let someone in. They've still got it.
Yeah,
someone's done
some more work on it.
Yeah,
I'll put the Droper stone. I'll get me book out, mate. I'll get me
put
book
the Droper
out again.
stones in there.
Put the Droper stones in that book when we finish off. I don't have much more to say about tonight. The Crystal Skull it went on, that one, and I understand why, because it's so important. And I wonder, probably the only thought I didn't say about that was like imitation is the purest form of flattery. So all these other crystal skulls, when someone might have seen that one, and they all sort of come from South America-ish, don't they? So theoretically. So someone had been taken to see the good ones.
Yeah.
And then had spent,
just like the Ika stones.
Yeah.
Could have, imitated. Because some of those ones, they look quite handmade.
Mm-hmm.
You can understand how they
That's
were
right.
quite easily handmade.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, man. It's a weird one, but that's, that was a good bunch of topics tonight, and the right information on the right areas.
Yeah.
The Dogon, the Dopers, the Ika stones weren't tonight.
Droper.
Crystal skulls, Droper stones.
The problem is that the pitch is not, and obviously it's the reason we do this, and this is, final thought. It doesn't make the picture more clearer.
No, exactly. It only muddies the waters, but it, I guess, by muddying the waters, it clouds the aura of transparency that is around the paradigm. Also, it's like, because the paradigm doesn't try to explain these things, it excludes them and just puts them out there as oddities
because they don't make sense to the picture,
or fakes, or exactly. So I believe you're going to leave us with some warrior wisdom.
Well, I just had the feeling.
I saw that you were just like, it just came to you.
Well, I wondered what the wisdom book had for us. I mean, by the time this one comes out, you guys will have known that Dr. Bodie Sanders is now a friend of the podcast, and that is excellent. And he's such a cool guy, as you guys would have heard by the time this one comes out. And he was blown away that I did this to him, and it worked on our conversation.
Yep.
So let's see if
let's continue the tradition.
Let's see, man. Reflect on this. Efforts and enemies, if left unfinished, can both ravage you like an unextinguished fire. I think that's. Do you know what I got from that? We just got to keep going, man.
That's
just got to keep.
What did you say before picking up the book?
Yeah,
you said this doesn't help.
No,
it just muddies the water further.
Yeah,
it just keeps the fires burning.
Yeah,
which
is the reason we do it.
The fires can burn you out. Don't burn the candle at both ends. That's the moral of the story.
Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, you.
Guys. Appreciate
Thanks, people.
That.
Good night. Peace.
Talk soon, guys. Look after yourselves.
Have I burned out? Have I blackened the ground? Will I fight back, find my strength again? Days have been gold, tomorrow losing their shine. Will I give up? I doubt it. I never turned to the bottle to wash away the demons in my mind. I stood up and knocked them down. Though I had a struggle till I seen the colored eyes of the kind. Now they have built me walk out of the road? Have I burned out? Have I blackened the ground? Will I fight back, find my strength again? Days have been gold, but tomorrow losing their shine. Will I give up? I doubt it. I never turned to the bottle to wash away the demons in my mind. I stood up and knocked them down. And if you wanna take me out, you need more than both your barrels to shoot me down. 'Cause now I am tough. Have I burned out? Have I blackened the ground? Will I fight back, find my strength again? Days have been gold, but tomorrow losing their shine. Will I give up? I doubt it. Will I give up? I doubt it. Will I give it